7th, running from page 125 to 128, and we'll quickly go through that as well. Dear Mama, it's written on 29th June 2020. Dear Mama, the bank promoted my graduate clerks. Let me start again. The bank promoted many graduate clerks to personal financial consultants, PFCs, and I was one of the beneficiaries. This shift meant that our roles became primarily sales-focused. I welcomed the change. It was the first step toward management. Finally, I could approve lower value transaction in the branch. Not much later, whispers circulated about the reshuffle among PFCs. Rumor had it that management wanted to transfer some PFCs from heavily populated branches like Moi Avenue to increase numbers in the upcountry branches. I did not want to move upcountry. First, I still harbored hopes of working in the theater. I was still in constant touch with Shibi, Professor Mbogo, and the rest of the KU theater fraternity. Secondly, we had started an ID card production business introduced to us by my old friend Mugambi. He and I had shared a hostel block back in university. I had acquired an old computer and wanted to do typing and printing tasks for myself, and when I had time for our other students. These services were mushrooming on campus, and at some point, every other room was advertising the same. Mugambi started out like the rest of us, but realized he could thrive by providing what everyone else needed, ink. By the time we graduated, he had made enough money to open his own shop in town. We kept in touch and exchanged notes. He had shown me a new way of making plastic identification cards using special paper and a printer. His business model was to supply the printers and consumables, ink and paper. There were over 5,000 secondary schools in the country, and many students did not possess student identification cards. The market was huge, and I was sold on the idea. The idea of moving upcountry, therefore, did not appeal to me. Adding to that, it would be a new town, requiring time to settle in and start making sales. Sales were difficult enough in the city. I could not imagine how much more challenging it would be upcountry. I realized that to survive in the city branch, I would have to be good at something that others were not, so that I would be spared the move. Someone was needed to ensure quality assurance among the PFCs. It struck me that many colleagues did not enjoy interacting with business accounts because opening them was a hassle, given the amount of documentation and processes involved. One had to identify all the company's beneficial owners, and some companies were complicated because they were owned by other companies. I decided to focus on business banking accounts. I worked with the business banking relationship manager at the branch to refer clients who wanted to open accounts to me. He was more than happy to do so, as it allowed him time to manage other clients' requests. This strategy paid off, as I quickly overcame the learning curve. Gisha assisted me in navigating the challenges of conducting client due diligence for companies. Client due diligence is very easy, he told me in his characteristic wise tone. Who is the customer? Evident that. Who does he do? Evident that. Where does he stay? Evident that. Now, do the same for the company. Many efforts to reskill and upskill paid off because I was spared the move upcountry. I also started receiving referrals from senior management. When the bank decided to pilot a team of sales agents to sell business banking accounts, it was a no-brainer where they would be placed. I became the team leader without a title. Lila Lux of Sasa Sema Publications called me with the news that the publishing house had been acquired by Longhorn Publishers, and everything, including all work in progress, would be published under the larger outfit. I was pleased since I had had a smooth experience working with Longhorn on We Can Be Friends, so I was eager to work with them on the Wangari Maathai manuscript. In September 2007, a few months later, we congregated at the Junction Mall on Gong Road, where Longhorn officially launched the junior biographies under the series title Lion Books. It was a surreal moment for me, launching Wangari Maathai, Mother of Trees, alongside luminaries such as David Mailu, whose books I had read growing up. Part of the Longhorn crew were two people with whom I instantly connected, Musyoki Muli and Beatrice Karanja. We had one thing in common. We were all products of David Mulwa, who was part of the applauding audience. I enjoyed reading Wangari Maathai, Beatrice told me as she handed me her card. Do reach out if you have any other work. We will be happy to look at it. When I walked over to greet David Mulwa, he leaned in and asked, "What are you writing?" I gave him an excuse about my challenging work at the bank and how I hardly had time for anything else, and he playfully boxed me. "Make sure you keep writing, eh?" I promised him I would. To be honest, I was not sure. After the villains of Molo, I did not think I had the energy to write anything else. In 2007, I attended a 2-day training course on relationship selling to prepare us for the next step in our careers. As relationship managers, we would be caring for more affluent clients. By the time of the training, I knew I wanted to be a trainer. The trainer was a larger-than-life gentleman named Julius Allego. He was soft-spoken, but chose his words so carefully that everything he spoke had an impact, prompting deep thoughts about the content. He wrote a flip chart, "So what?" in bold red lettering and kept referring to it at intervals. He advised that we had to relate everything we learned to the workplace and how to handle clients. Julius taught us about the importance of taking time to engage deeply with the clients before proposing solutions. He emphasized active listening, questioning, and paraphrasing skills to ensure understanding. Through role plays, we learned techniques to handle clients' objections. I learned the principle of Will FM. Everyone listens to the station called Will FM. What is it for me? He pointed at another flip chart. If your solution does not answer this question, it will be hard sell. I remembered my failed knife sales gig at Banana. That is why I had not succeeded. I was selling by telling customers, "Please promote me," instead of focusing on the benefits of our knives. "How can I become a trainer?" I asked Julius during break. He gave me tips about understanding the content and, even more importantly, understanding the audience and handling different learning styles. "I would like to travel like you do." Courtesy of the bank, I told him. During the training, he kept mentioning the countries he had visited, dozens. For someone like me, who had never left the country, it was aspirational. He chuckled. "It is all about preparation," he told me. "For instance, do you have a passport?" I admitted that I did not have one. This means that even if a position requiring travel becomes available, you would not be selected. The following week, I was at Nyayo House applying for the passport. When the opportunity arose, it would find me ready. Your loving son, KOMBANI. So the reflection from this specific entry 37 is first, promotion of graduate clerks to personal financial consultants. The next reflection is the maintenance in town instead of going up country. So KOMBANI remains in town and is assigned just within Moi Avenue. The third aspect is that he becomes a team leader, training people who are actually learning sales. The fourth reflection is having a lounge under Sasasema Publications, and not really a launch, having his book now under Longhorn instead of Sasasema, because Sasasema were actually acquired by Longhorn. So then we have the last recall is a training on relationship selling that makes Kombani understand the need to have a passport and go to acquire it, as well as how to sell his products. Now let's get to the synopsis. The synopsis goes like this. So Kombani tells us that the bank promoted many graduate clerks to personal financial consultants, and he became part of the team that was promoted. Now since then, he began to see himself as a manager, because now he could approve lower value transactions in the bank. Okay. Now, of course, even though there was a rumor that people would be relocated up country, his prayer was to remain in the city so that he can continue acting in the theater room, as well do his business, or rather run his business of cards, plastic bags, after having been introduced to it by Mugambi, who could supply ink and print paper. Now, of course, we also see in the synopsis that finally Kombani is not taken up country. He is maintained in town. And after that, he commits so much to help Gisha in doing a lot of client due diligence. After he commits to this, of course, Gisha helps him understand a lot that there is just need for evidence in everything you do. Who the customer is, what they do, where they stay, and finally, the same should be applied to a company. He also becomes very pertinent in the company with the referrals from senior management, and at last, we see that he's able to actually get to become a team leader for those who are training on sales in the banking accounts section. He also goes back to a flashback telling us about the Longhorn having purchased Sasasema Publications. The people were actually dealing with one of his books, Wangari Maathai, Mother of Trees. He's so happy about this because he realizes when working with Longhorn on We Can Be Friends, his manuscript was actually considered very fast. So very soon, there is a launching of his book, attended by David Mulu among other people, like Musyoki Muli and Beatrice Karanja, who encourage him to keep working. He goes back to another flashback, telling us about 2-day workshop, training workshop, or rather course of relationship selling, in which after listening to Julius Alego, he learns very important lessons such as selling products by using Will FM aspect. So what? Something that will make the audience want to listen. He also understands that it was important to listen, question, paraphrase whenever you want to understand a customer so that you can avoid objections. The principle of Will FM tells him that you must give a product that has, a solution for the customer, and that's why they will be interested. At the end of the day, he becomes so interested in a trainer role and also in traveling, just like Alego has done. And he challenges him to have a passport so that he can get these opportunities. Of course, Kombani goes for one. Now let's get to character and characterization. First character trait, as you know, looking at your loving son, Kombani, on page 128, we consider Kombani as a loving character. We also consider him as inquisitive. He goes to ask Alego about such questions on page 128. How can I become a trainer? How can I travel? Those questions, inquisitive. And we can also say he is very agile. He considers to acquire a passport immediately. He has been challenged by Alego that if he doesn't have one, he cannot be chosen to go anywhere. When we come to page 126, we realize that Kombani was quite hardworking and devoted. Unlike other workmates who avoided due diligence process, he tells us on page 126 he worked with the bank, a business banking relationship manager, and he worked so much on opening of accounts. Then he was happy to help in managing the client's requests, a strategy that paid him off because he quickly overcame the learning curve. He learned very fast. Then we see that through that, he is able to have referrals from senior management and soon become a team leader. We also notice, based on page 128, that Kombani is a bit pessimistic here. He's telling David Mulwa that after his encounter with the last villains of Molo, which has taken years before publication, he did not want to write anymore. Okay? He's sociable because, again, the kind of people he relates with, Musyoki Muli, Beatrice Karanja, David Mulwa, they are high-end people, and he's able to relate with them and actually take part in discussions with them. Looking at the first page of this entry, and that was page 125, we noticed that Kombani was actually very optimistic. He hoped that he would work at the theater, even if he's in the bank, and kept contact with the Shibi, Professor Mbogo, and the rest of the KU theater fraternity. He also hoped that his ID card business would actually grow, and through his sociability with Mugambi, he manages to push that business. He also hoped that he would not be transferred up country. We can see his entrepreneurial. He is investing in a business card venture, and he was actually focusing on making it thrive. He had bought an old computer and he wanted a printer so that he can produce those cards. We noticed that David Mulwa is supportive, Beatrice Mugambi is supportive, and then when it comes to thematic concerns, of course, we see determination. I think you've seen clearly that Kombani was very determined to work through his business, to also act in the theater fraternity, then to run his business. He was also determined to have to become a leader, and at one point he was, of course. And on page 128, he wants to become a trainer and to travel abroad, just like his trainer, a Lego head. From another perspective, we can get the theme of education. What Lego is offering these people through that course of relationship selling, it is actually education, whereby Kombani learns that in everything he talks to the clients, he must know the reason or the purpose of that. So what? He must understand active listening, questioning, paraphrasing, and role plays. He must also know how to use Will FM, which is what is in it for me. At the end of the day, he also learns the need to have a passport as a way to create opportunities for himself. When we look at creativity, we come to see that Kombani's 2 books have been worked on. There is one book, Wangari Maathai, Mother of Trees, and we have We Can Be Friends. They are being worked on for him, and they are launched at some moment. The other theme we see here is growth, or rather, I think it's growth, because Kombani is no longer a trainee at the bank. He becomes, let's say PFC is what? He becomes a personal financial consultant in a managerial position. Then later on, he also deals with due diligence for clients and becomes a lead, or rather a team leader. Away from thematic concerns, we can talk about stylistic devices. I think we have dialogue here. What are you writing? Make sure you write. I think this one is direct address, right? Beatrice said, I enjoyed reading Wangari Maathai. Do reach out if you have any other work. We will be happy to look at it. That is page 127. David Mulwa tells Kombani, what are you writing? Make sure you keep writing. Then on page 128, there is dialogue. How can I become a trainer? Kombani asks. And we see Julius says, he also says, I would like to travel like you do, courtesy of the bank. And we see Alego saying, it is all about preparation. For instance, do you have a passport? This means Even if the position requiring travel becomes available, you would not be selected. That is dialogue. We have a direct address again on top from Alego. Everyone listens to the station called Will FM. What is in it for me? If your solution does not answer this question, it will be hard to sell. We see some sort of flashback. Kombani takes us back to the time he is promoted from a trainer or a trainee to a personal financial consultant on page 125. We also see flashback for the time Sema Sasa Publications is bought by Longhorn Publishers and Kombani is able to have his 2 books published, We Can Be Friends and Wangari Maathai, Mother of Trees. We also have a flashback of 2007 on page 127 to 128 when Kombani was actually in a 2-day training course on relationship selling. We have irony. It's ironical that Kombani now feels to have no energy to write anymore after the experience with the last villains of Molo, yet he was excited that his new publisher is Longhorn and they had worked smoothly on We Can Be Friends. It's also ironical that Kombani wills to travel, yet he does not have a passport. It's ironical that Kombani thought he would be transferred up country, though he was praying not to. And yet, through his efforts to learn, he becomes a lead at the main branch. So I think we have got irony, flashback, we've seen. I think I saw some onomatopoeia. Whispers on page 128, paragraph 2. And I also saw charcoal on page 128. He chuckled. I think that is onomatopoeia. Unless otherwise I don't see any other style, we can move to, what do we move to? We are done, right? Yeah. So guys, let's meet another day. I think I've done enough for today's entries for this text. So next we'll be meeting to discuss entry 38. Bye bye for now.